was stress for me. Yeah, today I will share a bit of our experience with BDD in regulated fintech, specifically using Cucumber in CI/CD. I didn't know that Alexander would start before me today and share what Mintos actually is, so I also have a slide of what we do. And we are a multi-asset retail investment platform. We are licensed and supervised by Latvijas Banka, and we are a member of National Investor Compensation Scheme. And all these things include several regulations that we have to comply with. That's why the headline was regulated fintech. And a little bit about myself. Yeah, I started at Mintos as a QA engineer even before COVID. It was like year 2019. And since then, my family had 2 iterations of newer versions developed. So I was on a little bit of a break. But I have rejoined Mintos since last year's October. And currently I am working in a wallet team that is a team responsible for transaction processing. And if you are not familiar with Cucumber, this is just an example of how test scenarios look. They are super friendly to business people and non-technical persons. And now, how we got to the Cucumber and Java in Mintos. We actually started out as a monolithical architecture, and we figured that it would not be optimal setup for us, so we started migrating to microservices, and we had established our first Java project that was responsible for transaction monitoring. And that team's setup was that we had like a QA who was doing manual testing and owning those Cucumber scenarios that I showed you previously. But actually the step definitions behind the scenario were implemented by developers, and they were the ones maintaining them, and etc. But we figured that this setup is suboptimal. Hence, a position software engineer in test was born. And now in our newer Java teams, we have like those software engineers in test. And we are responsible both for creating scenarios, writing out the definitions, implementing them, and also like organizing CI/CD setup. Also, as mentioned before, we are using the Cucumber and Java. And for browser tests that we are currently migrating from the PHP system that we were having before, we are migrating to Playwright for browser tests. Yeah. A little bit about how we set up our tests in the project. Yeah, we have like separately deployable application. Instead of Cucumber dependency injection, it uses Spring One. The application works as standalone. You can separate the deploy separately. I said I am a bit stressed, sorry. But yeah, you call APIs to enqueue a test run. And for CI/CD, we have also another application called E2E client that interacts with the API from the main application, a lot of application. What are our focuses? We aim to create like meaningful tests that test real user behavior. We leave like separate API call testing, just like unit level and integration test level. But in our E2Es, we write out like real user scenarios. We also don't want to forget like unexpected behaviors, because that is a thing that usually gets a bit shadowed by the expected behavior. And also another approach we are using is that if it broke once, it might break again, meaning that every bug that we find, we try to reproduce as a failing test first. And so at the end, we compile like a library of real-world edge cases. And here is some samples of the application that has been developed. It is still like the first team's created framework. We just adapted to each team as we wanted. And you can see like examples of those API requests. One of them is like calling out all the features that are tagged with smoke test, and the other one is just all the integration features. And then the response would look like, here is your test run ID and URL where you can access that. And this is a small example also for those not familiar, how is it possible to organize those feature files in a test project. You can put them in packages or just leave as separate files, or other option is just tag either each file or just scenarios with that @ sign. So yes, this is example of how an NQ test run looks. Nothing much there, but after the run has finished, it is possible to see like a completed test run. You can see that success this time was false, sad. There are those past scenarios, the failed ones, and also a thing that has been implemented in the framework is step execution statistics, and that's just like for us to track the way how we work and to see if we have some particularly slow step definitions, for example, and places where we can improve. And at the end, we can see all the errors and the stack traces. And then it's just either gotta report a bug or fix a test, we'll see. And here is a little bit of example of our integration in CI/CD. This is the most simplest example that we have. I know that other teams have, before the staging, like UAT environment, they also have the test environment, and they also run E2E tests there. But yeah, this is our AWS code pipeline, where the main, not tests, but yeah, the application has been deployed, the staging environment, the test has been run, then there is possibility to see the results over there and decide like if we want to approve and deploy the production or not. And one goal for our team is that we are aiming also to run a smoke test suite in production as well, but because of those regulations, it has been a bit of a challenge. Here is the example of the client that I mentioned before. Here the output is not as responsive, verbose as it was in the E2 applications response, but there is a link you could like open up and see the full test run information if you are interested in what failed and why. And now, almost the end of my talk, about some learnings that I have, because in the dev clubs, like how to make a great presentation, it said that I have to share from my experience, and as you heard, I have been here only since October, so I don't have like the most of the learnings that, but the first one would be that you can write in whatever language you wish. There will always be a problem with test data and environment setup. And that is something that the programming language cannot solve. And the second one would be that although Gherkin scenarios are advertised as amazing for non-technical people, you have to remember that there needs to be a technical person behind it to implement and maintain successful scenarios, step definitions. And the third one would be not to be afraid to write those Cucumber scenarios even for a system that is not working yet, because the sooner you get the feeling on how you want your system to behave, the better requirements you will be able to develop, and there is a possibility to write out just scenarios and not to implement the step definitions right away. So yeah, small end note is, this was quite a quick talk, just a quick show on how we do things. We don't think this is the best one solution. We also don't think it's the worst one. And yeah, if you have questions, I'm open to discussion. And as also, we are hiring. Yeah, you heard that already. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. Already questions? Oh no. Yes.
What's the reason for migrating to Playwright?
Sorry?
What's the reason for migrating to Playwright?
Oh, because with microservices came also micro frontends, and we had like for Selenium WebDriver there is like an issue with interacting with shadow DOMs. That is the correct answer. I know it in Latvian, yeah. But yeah, and with Playwright there was no such issue, so we are migrating, yes. No. Oh, there is a part, yes. I get my ticket with new development. I see that if there has been a breaking change, then part of the QA process is rewriting or adapting scenario to get the passing test. And I hope not much actually. We can, I don't know. Maybe our system is just built to be quite easily testable because we had one requirement to switch and almost completely redesign one of our services, but my tests mostly interact and user mostly interacts with the main service that, well, yeah, it hasn't been a problem for us yet, but if you have some problems you're trying to solve, we can talk about later maybe. Yes?
Yeah. On Learn slide you said that they're not, behavior-driven development is not best for QAs. If you may switch back, maybe I just...
No, it was meant to be, I can explain if you wish. It is more than, it was meant to be more like this behavior that is written out in Cucumber. It usually is user's behavior, and sometimes there is a need to implement also technical behavior behind that step. For example, there also is this example that also said just make a card payment, but behind it you can see that there is a need to get a reference and etc. etc. And this was something that I have encountered previously, that other business or QAs were coming to me I'm trying to make a payment but the request is failing, why? And probably if they would open up the code and look a bit deeper, they would realize they had to do some preconditions before. Yeah. But did I answer your question?
Partially, but why then are you continuing with behavior-driven development if there are such issues?
Because we aim to migrate our QAs to software engineers and tests and get more technical people around. Yes?
Hi, I want to make a disclaimer. We don't have BDD, so it's a real curiosity.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a double question. BDD by definition means that you write tests first and then you develop.
Yes.
So okay, the second part, in case your developer realizes that requirements has changed, so he develops something else, right?
Yes.
Do you often face an issue that running your tests at the end, it's failing because of the, different development, and how do you handle that? Between your test, if it changes between your test and running it, between creating the test in the first place.
Yeah, then it would be marked as breaking change, like the change that will break the behavior that has been defined before, and we are.
So you end up writing the test twice, actually.
Yeah,
Before the development
fixing
and,
my
and
test.
fixing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's real life scenario.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have only automated tests, or are you doing also manual tests like exploratory or something like that?
On my daily basis, I perform also exploration. I have done like load tests sometimes when we are doing something with the AWS. Yeah, we do everything. I know that other teams don't have this kind of setup. We also have like one QA that is running her tests only in Postman. That was an interesting thing I saw. And yeah, also like we still have that monolithical system over there. There is no Cucumber there. There's Conception, and they test things differently. Yeah.
Then additional, then due to this regulated environment or fintech stuff, is it something that also all manual tests should be somewhat documented, or what our regulation requires from QAs to comply with documentation or something?
Yeah, what I have encountered, like the regulation process sadly happened while I was away, but since coming back, the things I have mostly encountered is that we need to have backtrace of everything that has been happened. So we document in Jira all the stuff that we do, like if we need access rights, it's Jira ticket, and that's mostly how our regulation is done. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
In your team, does somebody else besides tester and developer use or read or write Gherkin language?
Sorry?
Like,
is someone else writing the scenarios?
Yes, yeah. Reading or writing in Gherkin language, even business analysts. Do somebody beside?
We don't have business analysts.
I mean,
yeah,
but beside like developers.
Currently in our team, no, but I know that there is another team where product owner is writing her Jira requirements already as like in Gherkin style, like with given and then and that, yeah.
Like accepted the criteria.
Yeah.
And did you face some situation when somebody that's from business will ask you like, can you explain me the scenario and you just share the feature file or the Gherkin language as an example what you have already implemented?
I know that for some like issues that I have tested, I write down like to report what I did. I just write out, like print out the scenarios that I did and what. Am I getting your question like correctly?
Yeah.
But yeah, in our team, I am the only one who is writing them. But for reading, yes, I share them with like. Yeah. Yes.
Are you logging execution data of the tests on workers within the AWS, or any log files of the test execution with submitted data, etc.?
Am I looking at those?
Are you logging it?
Yes, we are. In the step definitions underneath, there are methods that use. Yeah,
your test execution does write logs.
Yes,
Okay.
but if I include it, yeah.
Then the question, how do you ensure data masking and data encryption of sensitive data used in tests on AWS or other public environments?
That is the reason why we're still not running tests in production. We only run tests in, like, our highest is the UAT, so there is still no real data, it's just mocks. Like mock data, faker data, also card data is from sandbox environments, so yeah.
Any card data from sandbox environment is considered relatively production-like card data, which should be also masked. And if I recall the regulations, including GDPR, that any client data that looks valid should be also masked, even if it's famous.
So basically the question would be, are you BSI, DSS certified? That's the first question. Yeah, that's which is for the FinTechs.
If I am not mistaken, we are compliant with the lowest, the PCI, like the 4th level is the lowest, yes?
Probably, I don't know. All right.
You asked me about the
Yeah,
certification.
but the question is, do you mask the test data? Because in reality, you cannot differentiate between the test data, let's say the card number, right, which the client uses to buy something. You cannot tell that it is a test card compared to like a real card, because they look the same.
Yeah.
Right? In production, it actually could be the same number.
Yeah.
So the question was how you like mask the data and what do you use for the masking? Or if you do it at all. If you don't mask, then okay, cool.
No, he's my colleague, so I don't know if he's gonna like ask
Legal
questions.
colleagues.
All test data is anonymized, so